Just looking through this cookbook on how to make some fantastic recipes, marinated cheese, and we have some marinated cheese here in our kitchen this morning. Egg salad, easy chicken salad. We all like easy, right? The name of the cookbook is The Legacy Garden, you see here, and we have Scott Wilson and Jean Butts here. This morning, you're not making the cheese, you're not making the egg salad. What are you making, Jean?
Oh, I'm making my biscuit, and they are just always, everybody wants my biscuit.
Because they're light as a feather, right?
Yes. Scott, my son, says they'll just float out of the oven.
How long have you been making these biscuits?
Many, many years.
Yeah?
I'm not going to conceal my age, so I
But
won't tell you how long.
you've been cooking maybe since you were a child?
No.
No?
After my marriage. I
Okay.
did not know how to cook when I was married, but I found out I had to learn to feed my family.
Yeah, it's a good thing to learn, right? Now, how did you learn? Did you teach him to cook?
Yes, I learned from my mother and both of my grandmothers.
Now, Scott, have you been cooking since you were young?
I have been.
You
I
have.
been.
Okay, so are you going to help her out with this recipe?
She's going to make that, and we can talk about some of the other things. She's going to start out with her biscuit mix, which she makes her own biscuit mix, and in the book we have the recipe for that. And then she adds buttermilk, and you can go ahead and start mixing those up. And biscuits are one of those things, you can give 10 people the recipe and you're going to get 10 different results because it's more of a technique thing. So that's why I wanted to have her do this today, to show how she makes the biscuits. She does them by hand, she doesn't cut them out with a cookie cutter, and it's an old-fashioned way. The baker that she bakes them on is a cast iron baker that was my grandmother's.
Oh, wow.
And so that shows you that cast iron lasts a long time. So.
Yes, it does. But again, like you mentioned, I mean, if you put them on a cookie sheet, you put them on Pyrex, anything that you bake them on can make the taste different, can make the
Very
texture
different.
different.
Yeah, the texture is the main thing because that cast iron skillet gets so hot and the biscuits just get crisp on the outside, nice and tender on the inside, and like I said, they just float out of the oven when you open the oven door.
Oh, sounds great. So you're just going to stir it by hand.
Yes.
Okay, and that's just the mix and the buttermilk. Now, what else are you going to add to them? Anything else?
Not anything else.
Oh, wow,
I
that's
have
nice.
I call it my biscuit cloth. They asked me earlier if I needed a cutting board, and I said, oh no, I do it by hand. I pinch them off like my mother and grandmother did.
Mine did
them in a
too.
row.
When she made the chicken and dumplings, that's what she always did. She did the pinching them off. So I remember that. Okay, so let's talk about this cookbook too,
Yes.
The Legacy Garden, because you guys are going to be signing copies of the cookbook at Carpe Diem.
Carpe Diem today from 2 to 4. And the book has over 130 recipes. There are 4 generations of my family's recipes, with a lot of new recipes. I now live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I work with the farmers markets up there and developed a lot of recipes using fresh vegetables. My mother and my dad have a garden every spring and summer. It's a 2.5-acre garden in Grove Hill, Alabama. They still do that every year. So it's just, we have a lot of preserved items that she puts up every year. We've got some of those recipes in there. Her homemade caramel candy. It's not just a recipe book. It's lots of stories also, and just recollections of me growing up and with food in the South.
Yeah, oh man, you can't beat the food in the South. If you've ever lived anywhere else, you know you can't beat the food here, no matter what it is. If it's seafood, if it's just homemade gumbo or chicken and dumplings. Oh man, I bet you make some good chicken and dumplings, don't you?
Well, chicken pot pie is my favorite. It's in there, and it's always a favorite, and it's good. It makes a big one, and to feed a crowd.
And you have some sweet things in here too. Some
Yes.
lemon icebox pie, the
That's
caramel
the candy.
Oh, now I'm going to have a piece of that before we go.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to share that with
We're
me?
going to share that with everyone.
Oh, that just looks way too good. Well, we're going to let you keep stirring. When we come back, we'll let you press out some biscuits. In the meantime, please feel free to go to our website and get the recipe for these light as a feather biscuits. They're on fox10tv.com. Well, the biscuits aren't there, but the recipe is. So it's on fox10tv.com on our Studio 10 page.
That'd be a pretty cool feature, though, if you could hit a button and biscuits would pop out of your computer. That'd be awesome. All right, we are back in the kitchen with Scott Wilson and Jean Butts, the co-authors of The Legacy Garden Cookbook, and we are working on, quote, light as a feather buttermilk biscuits. It's all about the technique, you guys said.
Technique.
Technique is where it's at, and Mama has the technique down.
She does.
And we were talking about this book and just talking food during the commercial break there while we were reading. So many fantastic recipes here. And you yourself, your roots are deep here in our area, even though you live in Kentucky right now.
I live in Kentucky now. I'm originally from Grove Hill, Alabama. I had the Magnolia Inn restaurant there for years. Was executive chef at the Country Club of Mobile here in Mobile for a short time. And just, these are my roots, and that's what I came back to with this cookbook. We have 4 generations of recipes, 130 recipes. There's 30 full-color photographs of recipes that or the actual food that was prepared.
Yes, and you took those photographs as well, and you did a fantastic job. I thought something was funny in here. Let me pull this up. We were taking a look through here, and we found your mom. Check this out, Joe. Joe is our camera guy. This is your pantry, Gene. And you said you didn't know they were going to take this photograph, and you said, "I'm sorry it's so messy." That is the most organized pantry in the United States. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Look at all that stuff you got in there. I guess that's because you have so many things preserved and canned and bottled and ready to go because you have a 2.5-acre garden. Is that what it was? Wow. So lots of different ways you can do new stuff with that garden.
Yeah, we were in there yesterday, and they still have watermelons that are ready to grow out there. So they haven't had a frost here, I guess, yet. And peppers, squash, still growing in the garden.
Oh, wow. That sounds great.
Last week, Jimmy, my husband, and I were out in the garden on our Polaris, and I got squash and peppers and tomatoes, October the 25th.
Isn't that wild?
And went in and made a fresh salad.
There you go. And you're making these fresh biscuits for us this morning. Tell us what you're doing right now, Gene.
Well, I'm rolling them out. They asked me earlier if I needed a cutting board, and I said no. I have my biscuit cloth that originally a great grandmother gave it to me, and she had made it out of a flour sack.
Oh, wow.
And I used it for years till I wore it out. And someone asked me one time, "Do you ever wash it?" I said, "Not if I don't have to, because it's always seasoned." But I roll these out like my mother and my grandmother's. I do not use a cutting board or a dough biscuit cutter.
It's kind of like cooking with a cast iron skillet, I guess. You get that goodness in there, you don't want to get rid of it, right?
Exactly.
Don't cook them in a cookie sheet. I could take the same biscuit and cook half of them on a cookie sheet, and the other half here, you would not know they were the same biscuit.
Oh, wow. It's all, like you mentioned, all about the technique. So you're rolling those out and getting them ready to go. We're going to pop those in the oven in a little while and then come back with our biscuits in the third and final segment. What are some of the other things you wanted to talk about that you brought here this morning?
Right. Well, every Southern family has a pimento cheese recipe. My family happens to have 3.
Okay.
So mine made the cookbook, though. But pimento cheese is like the pate of the South. And so we have pimento cheese on crostini and also fresh tomato preserves. And so these are great for a party. Have south of the salt line caviar. No fish were hurt in making this dish. This is a takeoff on redneck caviar.
All right.
And paid homage to Tom Perez, south of the Salt Line Theater, with this dish. And we're going to be serving this afternoon at Carpe Diem from 2 to 4 with the book signing.
All right, that's right. So we want to mention that one more time. Carpe Diem today, 2 to 4. You can get a copy of this book, meet the authors, get it signed. We truly hope you come out for that. And I truly hope to stick around for the next 20 minutes, which I'm going to do, to have these light as a feather buttermilk biscuits in just a little while. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.